The Kanto region is home to some of Ash's most iconic Pokemon, but it's also where Ash had the worst league performance of his entire career. So, in search of redemption, I wanted to see if it was possible to beat all of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu playing as Ash Ketchum. This means using only Ash's OG Pokemon, and to make things even harder, I'm only allowed to use the same moves that Ash Ketchum uses in the anime. With a stack of extra rules on top to make this even more painful, could Ash finally redeem himself and become the Kanto champion, or is he destined for defeat? Well, let's find out. After loading in, we're quickly introduced to our first partner Pokemon, Pikachu. Although, something feels off about this guy. I could have sworn that Ash's Pikachu used to look a lot meaner. And a lot fatter. Regardless, Ash's iconic electric mouse is obviously the perfect starter for this challenge. And I mean, look at how cute it is. I will die for you, little mouse. But Kanto is home to so many of Ash's coolest Pokemon. So let me know in the comments which of Ash's Kanto Pokemon is your favorite and why. After Oak hands us our Pokedex, we're free to begin our journey to redemption. Our new Pikachu starts out knowing 3 moves, but out of these, Ash's Pikachu only used Thundershock, meaning that's what we're stuck with for now. And considering that the first gym leader uses 2 ground rock types, I fear we may be in trouble. Putting that aside for now, one of the unique mechanics of the Let's Go games is that you don't actually battle wild Pokemon, instead having to catch them to gain XP. So, while I'm forced into catching all kinds of Pokemon to train up our team, I'll still only be able to actually battle with the ones that Ash owned. Anyway, after some more catching, Pikachu quickly grew to level 7, also adding Quick Attack into its arsenal. And after delivering Oak his package from the Pokemart, the old man gives us some Rizeberries before our rival Gary finally challenges us to our first battle. Although, this man pulled up with only a single Eevee, so Pikachu just Thundershocks it repeatedly until Eevee's brain is basically reduced to jelly, giving us a very straightforward first win. And while Gary tries to revive his Eevee, I get to pat Pikachu. Honestly, I think this is my favorite feature in the entire game. 1 new sub equals 1 head pat for my brand new son here. With the game's introduction out of the way, now we have a problem, because our Pikachu is literally useless against Brock in the first gym. And unlike the anime, we can't just rely on cheesing a win by attacking the fire sprinklers like some kind of fraud. However, thankfully, as we enter the Viridian Forest, it's here that we can find our key to success. Caterpie? This little slug was the first wild Pokemon that Ash ever caught, so it is a fitting Pokemon to find. Although, while it does evolve early, this little guy is also weak to rock, meaning that our new duo are both as useless as each other for our upcoming gym battle. Thankfully though, for the Let's Go games, Game Freak added a new Pokemon to the Viridian Forest that is exactly what we need. It is a rare spawn though, so I had to cut laps around the Viridian Forest for ages. But eventually, we're able to find Ash's next Pokemon, Bulbasaur. This is one of the real OG Ash Pokemon, and importantly, it's also a grass type, making it the perfect Pokemon to bring into Brock's gym. So, after training up our team by literally catching anything with a pulse inside the Viridian Forest, our Caterpie had evolved all the way into a Butterfree, and our team had gotten much stronger. So, after charging through the forest, we arrive in Pewter City, where the first gym is located. What am I supposed to do with you, Slowpoke? I guess you could eat its tail. Eat its tail? You sick freak! Get away from me! Come on, just give me 1 bite, please! Now we were ready to take on the gym, but under my rules, since Brock only has 2 Pokemon, we can only bring 2 Pokemon as well to make it a fair fight. On top of that, our Pokemon also can't be a higher level than Brock's ace. And finally, the most important rule, no attacking the water sprinklers or other fire safety equipment. So, after assembling our duo, we stepped into Pewter City Gym, ready to face Brock. But since both of his Pokemon are quad weak to grass, our Bulbasaur can utterly annihilate Brock's team, soloing him in just a few shots. Ah, please, no more! Just take the badge and leave me alone! With that, Ash had claimed a very comfortable first badge. Although, while things have been very smooth so far, Ash's team would soon come up against some much tougher hurdles. For now though, after exiting the gym, we meet actual Gary, and this makes things very confusing, since I named our rival Gary, and now we have this Gary too. Anyway, new old Gary hands us some great balls, clearing us to begin our journey towards the second badge. As soon as we enter Route 3, we're stopped by this guy, who claims to be a big, strong coach trainer. Although, he just pulls up with a literal exact copy of my level 11 Bulbasaur. Identity theft is not a joke, man. So, after a thrilling showdown between two houseplants, eventually, Pikachu cleans up the fight with Quick Attack. After the win, he rewards us with a revive. But, are you sure? I'm pretty sure your Bulbasaur needs this more than me. But besides beating up a bunch of bug freaks, this route is also home to another one of Ash's Pokemon. And this one is one of the all-time greats and the Kanto hard carry, Charmander. I will never get over how heartbreaking this little guy's backstory is, and while it just straight up refuses to cooperate at any given opportunity, it's also responsible for one of the most iconic fights in Pokemon. Charmander is definitely going to be essential if we want any chance of taking on this challenge. We just desperately need to make sure that we keep it out of the rain. Our level 3 Charmander has 0 usable moves right now, so it'll just be a passenger in our party for now, as we head into the caves of Mount Moon. And as soon as we enter, we find Jesse and James of Team Rocket. They claim to be here to steal the Mount Moon fossils, but of course, we can't let that happen. So, naturally, we just let them escape. Seriously, Ash? It's been 30 years! When will you learn this lesson? Putting Ash's empty brain to the side for just 1 second, this channel just hit the milestone of 500,000 subscribers, which is insane. I'm really grateful for all the support that the fans have given to my channel. So as thanks, to give something back to you guys, and to celebrate this milestone, I've partnered up with GamerSupps to give out a ton of GamerSupps product for free. If you don't already know, GamerSupps is a tub of powdered formula. By adding just 1 scoop of GamerSupps to some water, you create an energy boosting drink that has 0 sugar and 0 carbs, that also comes in a bunch of great tasting flavors. I partnered with GamerSupps because I've been using this product already almost daily for the last 3 months, and I've been loving it. So here's the deal for the free giveaway. For the next 2 days, if you click my GamerSupps link in the description below, or just enter the code KJ at the checkout, you can add a GamerSupps sample pack to your cart for free. There's no shipping cost, and you don't even need to enter any payment information. It's totally free, but only for the next few days, so make sure to claim it fast. But if you're watching this after the giveaway, you can still use code KJ to claim a juicy 10% discount off your order. Anyway, a big thanks to GamerSupps for helping us do this giveaway, and an even bigger thanks to the fans and shareholders out there for supporting the channel as we now aim for our next milestone of 1 trillion subscribers. Anyway, after gradually making our way through Mount Moon, and making sure to take the Helix fossil as a prayer to RNGesus, we're eventually confronted by the Team Rocket trio. They try to battle, but for now, they've still only got Ekans and Koffing, which we can handle very quickly. So, Team Rocket was sent blasting off again, and we were clear to exit Mount Moon before shortly after arriving in Cerulean City. Oh my god, that Electrode's gonna blow! Everybody get... Besides the exploding balls, Cerulean is also home to the second gym leader, Misty. And since she uses water types, we've got a pretty solid matchup thanks to our duo of Pikachu and Bulbasaur. So, I confidently marched straight into the gym, ready to take on Misty. This fight starts out well. Misty leads with her Psyduck, and in the battle of these 2 squishy yellow boys, our Pikachu comes out on top as a second Thundershock sends Psyduck to its watery grave. Misty's final Pokemon is her iconic Starmie, but thanks to Ash's Pikachu having unrivaled plot armor, not only do we outspeed, with Thundershock doing big damage, but we also manage to somehow survive a Scald on the next turn. This means that Pikachu is able to land 1 more Thundershock before our ace mouse goes down. Now it was all down to a 1v1, but thankfully, Bulbasaur is bulky enough to comfortably tank 2 Swifts, allowing our based Bulba to land 2 Vine Whips, crushing Misty's final Pokemon, and giving Ash the second badge on our very first try. Alright Ash, you can have the badge, but where is that bicycle you owe me? Oh, right, that bicycle. I've got a brand new one parked just outside. You wait here and I'll be right back. Inside the Cerulean Pokemon Center, this circus freak offers to teach Pikachu an incredibly powerful move, which sounds great until you realize that Ash's Pikachu never learned Zippy Zap or any of the other overpowered Let's Go moves that Pikachu can learn. So yeah, we're stuck with garbage like Thunder Shock and Quick Attack. Thanks, Ash. Really appreciate it. Anyway, heading north, we run into our rival Gary, and just look at this smug face. I can't wait to Thunderbolt that grin right off. His team is still pretty pathetic, so Pikachu Thundershocks all over his roster for another quick win over our rival. Although, while things had been going very smoothly so far in this challenge, soon we were going to be facing up against our biggest hurdle yet. For now though, after pushing through the Nugget Bridge battles, it's in this area that we can find the newest member of Ash's team, Squirtle. And I don't care what anyone says, this guy right here is the coolest member of Ash's team hands down. He's got the shades, he's got the squad, he's got the cars and the millions. What a king. With our collection of Ash's Kanto starters now complete, our team was finally starting to come together. After moving further along the route, eventually we make it to Bill's house and oh my god, that Nidoran is standing up! Quick, Pikachu, break its legs! Wait, no, I'm actually... Turns out that Bill is actually taking over the bodies of Pokemon like some sort of twisted freak. FBI, check this man's hard drives immediately. Anyway, after collecting our SS Anne ticket, we head back to Cerulean, only to find that this Squirtle just mugged a police officer. Ma'am, how did you get mugged by a turtle? Heinous crimes aside, now we're clear to head south of Cerulean, and pretty quickly, we're able to find yet another one of Ash's Pokemon, Pidgeotto. Let me tell you, this might just be the smartest Pokemon on Ash's entire roster, because Pidgeotto saw just how dumb Ash was in Season 1 and just straight up left, only to then rejoin the team 30 years later, once Ash had finally become a champion. Gold Digger status aside, regardless, it's a nice addition to the team, and now we finally have a full roster. Although, half of these Pokemon will never be able to evolve, and 2 of them are flying types, which is incredibly concerning, considering that our next gym fight is against Surge. However, before that, we continue traveling south of Cerulean, eventually reaching Vermilion City. And hey, look, that Squirtle from earlier was finally caught by the police. Squirtle has committed several war crimes and will spend the rest of his life behind bars. More heinous crimes aside, we board the SS Anne cruise ship and, oh my god, 2 Garys at once? Please, I can only handle so much Sigma energy at one time. While on this boat, there are 3 main things that happen. 1, we battle our rival Gary, and while we do still come out with the win, his team is definitely getting stronger, KOing most of my Pokemon in the process. 2, the captain shows us how to cut down trees. And 3, most important of all, Pikachu and I recreate the iconic scene from Titanic. My god, isn't it beautiful? I think I might shed a tear. Like if you cried. After that touching moment, now we were clear to tackle the next gym. However, we are absolutely not ready for the demon that is Lieutenant Surge. His team is way too strong, and we are severely underleveled. So, I had no choice but to grind, and this took so long. Grinding in this game honestly takes forever, and while we're talking about Game Freak trolling me, why is it that Bulbasaur uses Dig in the anime, but can't learn it in the games? If only this stupid plant could dig, my life would be so much easier in this gym fight. Regardless, all of my grinding was worth it, as Charmander was able to evolve into Charmeleon, and if the anime is anything to go by, it'll become a Charizard in like 5 minutes, and then never listen to me ever again. Great. On top of that, Pikachu also learned Thunderbolt, giving our team another nice power boost. So, after putting our 3 electricity-allergic Pokemon onto the bench, we're left with these 3 heroes to try and take on Surge. This was going to be our toughest fight yet, but we're still undefeated in this challenge. So, I confidently stepped forward to Surge, ready to claim our 3rd badge, and I got crushed. Seriously, Surge's lead Voltorb can both use Light Screen to weaken our attacks, and Thunderbolt to deal enormous damage to our team. Even after switching out into Bulbasaur who resists electric, we still can't outpace Voltorb as Bulbasaur goes down. And despite Pikachu being able to secure the revenge KO with Quick Attack, this is where it all goes downhill. Because I tried bringing in Charmeleon against Magnemite, but get instantly fried by a Thunderbolt that also paralyzes me. As a result, Charmeleon instantly goes down, leaving it all up to Pikachu in a 2 versus 1. We can scrape by against Magnemite with a few Thunderbolts finishing it off, however, Surge still has his Raichu. And once again, history repeats as Ash's Pikachu faces off against Surge's Raichu. But just like the anime, our Pikachu doesn't have enough firepower. 2 Quick Attacks just aren't enough to handle Raichu, as we have no choice but to watch on, as Pikachu is decimated by Thunderbolt. And so, for the very first time in this challenge, we had lost. And while that might have been our first loss, it definitely wasn't going to be the last, because I tried taking on Surge again, only to get beaten even worse. This time, his Raichu just soloed 2/3 of my team, before handing me yet another big fat L in quick succession. See, Ash? Pokemon is way harder when you actually have to beat the gym leader and don't just get given the badge for free. My life would be so much simpler if this stupid Pikachu would just take the damn Thunderstone. But since Pikachu wants to be selfish, I had to wait for Ash's 2 brain cells to finally spark, and once they did, we had a new plan, and once again stepped forward to Surge for the 3rd time. This time, as Surge's Voltorb sets up Light Screen, I lead with Bulbasaur and instantly use Leech Seed on Voltorb before switching out into Pikachu on the following turn. This is important because the gradual recovery from Leech Seed means that by the time Pikachu overpowers Voltorb with Quick Attacks, we still have most of our health left. And this makes all the difference, because at this HP range, Pikachu is barely able to survive a second Thunderbolt from Magnemite, which buys us just enough time to finish off Surge's Magnet with a Thunderbolt of our own. This means that we still have all 3 Pokemon left by the time Raichu hits the field. But this thing is so deadly. Not only does it finish off our Pikachu, but 2 Thunderbolts also instantly send Charmeleon to its grave too. So the 3v1 had quickly descended into a 1v1. But with Raichu at low health, our based Bulbasaur can comfortably tank a Thunderbolt before our Razor Leaf connects, finishing off that demon of a mouse. With that, we had finally gotten our 3rd badge on the 3rd try. Although the fact that we're already struggling so much does make me horrified about how Ash is going to stand any chance against the actually difficult fights later on. It's Misty again! Is this about what I did in your pool? No? Wait, what did you do in my pool? Nothing. You should probably clean that pool. Now, this next section of the game is long, and we have to make the trip from Vermilion all the way around Kanto to Celadon City. And while most of this journey is pretty uneventful, there are a few highlights, like Team Rocket deciding to finally just beat us up instead of battling Pokemon before Lorelei steps in to save us. Other than that, we can also catch one of my favorite Pokemon owned by Ash, Krabby! This is such a Chad Pokemon. Even when Ash tried to literally impale it with a stick, Krabby just chopped up that stick like it was nothing. Truly one of the all-time greats, who has some of the best 1v1 stats out of all of Ash's Pokemon ever. It truly is an honor to serve alongside you, Krabby. Besides Krabby, we're also able to find Raticate, which, yeah, Ash did technically have one of these for like 6 seconds after trading his Butterfree for it, before getting a case of buyer's remorse and quickly trading back. So, with our 2 new team members secured, we eventually made our way through Lavender Town before pressing forward until finally reaching Celadon City. And once here, we're met by Brock, a man who is legally not allowed within 100 feet of the Celadon gym trainers as a result of his past misdemeanors. Regardless, he does hand us the tea, which also opens up access to Saffron City. But on top of that, Celadon is also home to the department store, which, in this game, contains some unique outfits for our Pikachu. So, I went in search of an outfit that would strike fear into the hearts of our enemies. An outfit that screams power. An outfit just like this. That's right. Armed with our new glasses and a Fearless Diglett cap, Ash and Pikachu were ready for total world domination. And that starts by heading south of Lavender Town, where I decided to build up some levels on our team by utterly electrocuting all of the fishermen and their water types along this route. However, while my confidence was now flying high, that was soon about to change, because just a little further down the route, I encountered Onix. And I know what you're probably thinking. Onix is a garbage Pokemon. There's no way that we would possibly be swept by this thing. Right? Right? Okay, Ash, nice joke and all, but let's get serious. Are you kidding me? Yeah, our entire team just got swept by a single Onix with Earthquake and Rock Slide. This is so embarrassing. I don't think my reputation will ever recover from this. Putting that humiliation aside, we instead set our sights on clearing the Lavender Tower. Ash, why is your Pikachu wearing a Diglett on its head? Jeez, Gary, it's called fashion. Look it up. Anyway, after moving through the tower, we try to confront the giant ghost on the top floor, but that'll have to wait until after we've secured the Silph Scope. So, to do that, we first return to Celadon City before moving down into the Team Rocket HQ. Clearing through all of the grunts and puzzles is mostly smooth, including Jesse and James, who we send blasting off yet again. However, then we're confronted by Rocket admin Archer, and even though he only has 2 Pokemon, both of these are level 33, while our team is significantly weaker than that. Even our ace, Pikachu, still isn't able to overpower Weezing, falling to 2 Sludge Bombs before on the next turn, Pidgeotto just gets crushed in a single shot. And while Charmeleon is able to finally KO Archer's first Pokemon, then he follows up with Golbat. And this thing is a monster, as it only takes 2 crunches to annihilate Charmeleon, leaving us with only these 3 Pokemon. Wanna guess how this went? Yeah, we got crushed for yet another loss. But despite the beatdown, I knew that we could win this fight on our second try with a different strategy. This time, I keep Pikachu in the back, instead having other Pokemon like Bulbasaur and Charmeleon deal with the lead Weezing. As a result, with Pikachu kept healthy, Golbat is far less of a threat this time around, as Thunderbolt wipes out the oversized bat. Yeah, take that, Archer. How does it feel to lose to a Pikachu with a Diglett on its head? However, our celebration is very short-lived, as Giovanni, looking like an absolute Bond villain with his turtleneck sweater, immediately forces us into a battle. And this guy is even stronger than Archer, boasting level 35s. This power gap is just way too much for our team to handle, as very quickly, Persian sweeps our entire roster straight into the trash. That was our biggest loss yet, and it wasn't even close. Our early game Pokemon especially were really struggling. On top of that, things are made even harder by the fact that this game doesn't have abilities or held items for us to get creative with. Meaning, without any other options, I knew we had to power up. So I got to grinding, catching everything with a pulse. I spent hours flinging my arms around like some kind of crazy person, but after a painful grind, our team had finally caught up to the level curve. And while we do have a score to settle with Giovanni and his stupid cat, first, I decided to direct our attention towards earning the 4th gym badge. Since Erica uses 3 grass types, and we have 3 Pokemon who resist grass, our team choice here is pretty obvious. Although, Season 1 Ash and his 2 brain cells probably would have just brought their worst team possible. Regardless, with our trio of heroes assembled, we stepped forward to take on the grass type gym leader. Erica leads with her Tangela, so we open with Butterfree. However, despite Butterfree quad resisting grass, it turns out this thing is useless, because our tackles barely do any damage, and Tangela's Mega Drains just basically recover back to full health every turn. Combine this with Erica's Sleep Powder that puts Butterfree to bed, and yeah, Butterfree contributes absolutely nothing before Erica's Grassy Ball of Spaghetti picks up the easiest KO of its entire career. Thanks, Butterfree. You really are one of the Pokemon of all time. Now we were on the back foot in what has basically become a 2v3. Next up, we send in Ash's Pidgeot, who thankfully is a lot more equipped than Butterfree, as a super effective wing attack does solid damage to Tangela. Although we are put to sleep, which makes things very dicey, as Erica also uses Bind, which gradually chips away at our bird. As a result, by the time we land our fourth and final wing attack, Pidgeotto's health has taken a beating. And this is a problem, as Erica retaliates with her ace, Vileplume. Thankfully though, at the very least, Pidgeotto is able to land one last wing attack for decent damage before being utterly annihilated by a single shot with Vileplume's Moonblast. With that KO, we were down to our final Pokemon, Charmeleon. Just like the anime, Ash was behind in the fight against Erica, although unlike the anime, we can't rely on Team Rocket just blowing up the gym mid-fight for us to earn the badge. Regardless, a super effective Ember from Charmeleon still isn't enough to melt down Erica's plan. But after comfortably tanking a Mega Drain, Charmeleon's Dragon Rage is all we need to finish Erica's ace, bringing the fight back to an even 1v1. But despite us having the type advantage against Erica's Weepinbell, we aren't safe yet, because an Ember just isn't enough to get the KO on the walking shocked emoji, clearing Erica to fire off a big, powerful poison jab, and we just survive! Charmeleon just tanks the hit, clearing us to fire off one last Ember on the following turn, as Erica's final Pokemon is burnt into the dirt. With that, Charmeleon had somehow clutched up and Ash had earned the 4th gym badge. And all it took was heroically burning the entire gym and every single plant inside it to the ground. But look, despite Butterfree pulling 0 weight in that fight like a complete and utter liability, it is still a valuable member of Ash's team. However, since this is the Ash run, and Ash did release his Butterfree in the anime, it only feels fitting that we do the same thing too. Bye bye Butterfree. I hope you live a long, happy life, full of joy, fulfillment, and... oh. That's awkward. With the Celadon badge secured, now it was finally time for our revenge date with Giovanni. He may have slaughtered us last time, but now our team is much stronger. And this makes all the difference, as this time, Pikachu can comfortably survive a second hit from Giovanni's Link Persian. This clears our ridiculous Diglett-wearing mouse to land the 2 Thunderbolts needed to KO Persian. However, his next Pokemon is Rhyhorn, a ground type that our Pikachu is basically helpless against. So this is the perfect time for our Krabby to make its debut, and it's gone. Yeah, turns out this Rhyhorn is a monster, as it KOs not only Krabby, but even our Bulbasaur too soon after. Thankfully, Charmeleon is still able to finish the fight with Dragon Rage though, finally giving us our revenge on Giovanni. Although I can't help but feel worried. We're already struggling against Giovanni's worst team in a 2v6. How was Ash's team going to stand any chance against his full-powered final team of powerhouses? Anyway, that's a problem for future Ash, because for now, we've got a lot on our plate to take care of. First, outside the game corner, this guy will teach us the secret technique, Sky Dash, basically replacing the HM for Fly with a whole bunch of balloons tied to a chair. We can also use the Sylph Scope that we got from Giovanni to once again descend the Lavender Tower, before watching on as the angry spirit of Marowak is quelled by Cubone, which is a much more touching story than the old version, in which the player just basically beats the ghost into submission. But with that taken care of, this clears us to meet with Fuji, who graciously bestows us with the Pokeflute. And this item is a godsend, because this is exactly what we need to encounter another one of Ash's most iconic Pokemon, Snorlax. This Pokemon is an absolute king. Its only motivation is food, making it probably the most relatable member of Ash's team. And I mean, how can you not respect such an advanced level of lazy oafery? So, with Snorlax caught, our team had gotten a huge upgrade. But the upgrades don't stop there, as the Pokeflute opens up a huge section of the region for us to explore. And with that comes even more team upgrades. Because at the current level cap, we get some much needed evolutions, as Pidgeotto evolves into Pidgeot, as well as Krabby, who evolves into Kingler once it finally learns Crabhammer. But on top of these, there's one more evolution for now that's even more iconic. as we finally get to add Ash's Charizard to the team. And despite the fact that he just straight up refuses to contribute most of the time, Charizard will always be one of the undeniable GOATs of Ash's roster. Our team had gotten some incredible upgrades, and soon after, we arrived in Fuchsia City. There is a gym here, but before taking it on, there's another one of Ash's Pokemon that we can now catch. Because by heading east of Fuchsia, it's on these routes that we can hunt down Tauros, Ash's powerhouse Kanto bull. Except Ash didn't just have a Tauros, because this psychopath went out and caught 30 of them. Seriously, he went out of his way to get an entire herd of these things. But Tauros is a pretty rare spawn, so of course I wasn't going to waste my time by painstakingly hunting down 30 of these things just for the sake of this video. Right? Psych, this is the Ash Ketchum run, baby. You better believe that I invested all of my money into Ultra Balls before spending the next few hours of my life tediously hunting down every single Tauros I could. And look, this was an incredibly agonizing process, but it will all be worth it if you like this video right now and subscribe to the channel. Do it for me, and do it for our new army of bulls. Anyway, after a few hours, we had finally caught our lucky 30th bull. My god, isn't this just beautiful? With that mammoth task now taken care of, we once again return to Fuchsia City in search of Ash's next badge. This time, we're up against Koga's poison types, and while Ash's team has had some huge upgrades recently, Koga's team is stacked with some disgusting strategies, like combining Toxic with Minimize to slowly stall you out. Since we don't have any great options for dealing with poison types, I just assembled my strongest quartet of Ash's Pokemon before stepping up to face Koga, and this guy immediately whips out the Shadow Clone Jutsu. Like, we get it, you're a ninja. Get over it. Anyway, the battle begins and Koga leads with his Weezing as we send in Kingler. Our first Crabhammer lands for pretty decent damage before Kofu responds with his signature Toxic, poisoning our Kingler. While another Crabhammer just isn't enough to finish Weezing on the next turn, Kofu decides to just self-destruct, sacrificing Weezing to deal big damage to our Crab. Despite Kingler being low, we're still able to land one last Crabhammer onto the incoming Muck before Kofu evens up the score to a 3v3 with Sludge Bomb. At this point in the fight, Kofu and I continue trading Pokemon, as Tauros overpowers Muck with takedowns before falling to poison damage on the next turn. Now the fight was evened out to a straight 2-on-2. However, this is where our ace, Pikachu, takes over, because with a single Thunderbolt, Pikachu electrocutes Golbat right out of the sky. And thanks to our Ash Ketchum plot armor, not only do we land a critical hit onto the incoming Venomoth, we even paralyze it too, meaning that after Pikachu barely survives a Sludge Bomb from Venomoth, one last Thunderbolt is all Ash needs to finish the fight, earning us our 5th badge on the very first try. Alright Ninja Boy, time to send you back home to the village hidden in the L's. With our Ash Ketchum plot armor firing on all cylinders, our team was somehow holding its own. And while I'm still horrified about how we're going to stand any chance against the Elite Four, for now, we headed back to Saffron City, which has been overrun by Team Rocket. And after charging into the now taken over Sylph HQ, it's here that we run into Gary 1 and Gary 2. This is a horrible situation. Countless lives of hostages are at stake here. So, do you think the Elite Four might come and help us? Hey, wait, that's a good point. This is an active hostage situation. Where are the region's strongest trainers at a time like this? Oh, I'm sure they're attending to other more important matters. Anyway, with no backup coming, we began charging through the Sylph building, beating up mountains of grunts along the way. And while most of this is pretty uneventful, we do find something incredibly useful: the TM4 Flamethrower, Charizard's signature move, which is an enormous upgrade over the Ember that we've been stuck with so far. Overall, cleaning out the Sylph building is relatively straightforward. We beat up Team Rocket and send them blasting off again. We also have to rematch Giovanni, but since this still isn't his full power team, we deal with it without much trouble, forcing Team Rocket to retreat and give up on their plan. Thank you, young man. I owe you my life. And as thanks, I will give you anything you like. Anything? Of course, you name it, okay? Can you help me to finally turn 11 years old? I've been 10 years old for the last 30 years. Look, I'm not a miracle worker, kid. Just take the Master Ball and get out of my office. Fine. Heroics aside, after being escorted out of the building, we once again come face to face with our rival, Gary. You and me, Ash, we really managed to save Sylph. You weren't even in the room when I saved the company. Anyway, where were you? With Saffron City back to normal, now it was time to turn our attention towards earning our 6th badge from Sabrina. And in the anime, this is one of Ash's most fraudulent badges of all time. Not only did Ash lose to Sabrina, but in their rematch, he only got the gym badge because he, wait for it, made Sabrina laugh? That's right, he didn't earn the badge because of being a skilled trainer, he won it because he's a clown. This man is a fraud and deserves to be behind bars. Regardless, we don't have the ability to earn badges through comedy. So, after assembling our strongest team of 4, we charged into Sabrina's gym, ready to earn our next badge. I had a vision of your arrival, and I also had a vision of what you did in Misty's pool. That was very distasteful, and possibly illegal, yeah? Well, you turn people into dolls, so you can leave me and my 2 brain cells alone. Sabrina leads with Ash's probable father, Mr. Mime. But since she just decides to set up a light screen on turn 1, our Tauros comfortably lands 2 takedowns, giving us the early lead. Sabrina's Slowbro hits the field next, and since the light screen is up, I don't want to switch Pikachu in just yet. So instead, we just stay in with Tauros, but ultimately get put to sleep by Yawn. As a result, Sabrina has time to boost up her bro with Calm Mind, raising both its special attack and special defense before a Surf wipes Tauros off the map. But despite Sabrina's boosts, Pikachu's Thunderbolt still deals enormous super effective damage. And after our Ace Mouse just barely survives a Psychic, another Thunderbolt fries Slowbro into its grave. But Sabrina immediately fires back as her incoming Jinx quickly finishes off our weakened Pikachu with one last Psychic, bringing it back to a 2v2. However, one of those Pokemon on our bench is Charizard, who goes absolutely huge here. A full power flamethrower instantly melts down Jinx into a Psychic-type puddle, and even Sabrina's ace, the terrifying Alakazam, can't stand up to Charizard, as 2 flamethrowers overpower Alakazam and his spoons, giving Ash the win and yet another gym badge. Honestly, Kanto Ash earning a gym badge legitimately on his first try feels so wrong. But after how much we struggled earlier, I'll gladly take any win I can get. Before we can move on to our next destination of Cinnabar Island, first, we have to figure out a way to cross the ocean, because Lord knows Ash's Pokemon are definitely not swimming across the sea. Thankfully though, in Fuchsia City, we can find this guy who teaches Pikachu the Sea Skim technique, meaning that we all just pile onto a surfboard, which somehow lets us cross the ocean, I guess. But despite breaking all known laws of physics, sure enough, soon after, Ash arrives on Cinnabar Island, and it's here, inside the Pokemon Mansion, that we can find Ash's gooeyest team member, Muck, the giant poisonous goo ball, best known for literally trying to digest a Bellsprout, as well as affectionately dousing Ash in poisonous sludge. Although, spoilers, Muck will never appear again in this video. So, if you're a real Muck fan, soak in all this lovable gooiness while you still can. Anyway, after grabbing the secret key from deep inside the Pokemon Mansion basement, we're all clear to take on the 7th gym leader, Blaine, and his fire types. But this gym challenge requires Ash to answer basic trivia questions, and we all know that Season 1 Ash and his 1 IQ brain would have absolutely 0 chance of passing this. Okay Ash, for your final question, name 1 type weakness of the Pokemon Onix. Alright Ash, this is an easy one. You got this. Sir, I'd like to lock in Electric. Did you receive a brain transplant from a coconut? My dad is a Mr. Mime. Leave me alone. Okay, now all of this is starting to make sense. Ash v Blaine is one of the most legendary fights in the Pokemon anime. And since Blaine leads with his Magmar, we naturally have to recreate the iconic showdown by opening with Ash's Charizard. Although, both Blaine's hair and his Magmar are severely nerfed in the games compared to the anime, because Charizard's wing attacks deal pretty solid damage, while Magmar's flamethrowers are far less threatening. And while Charizard does get hit by Confuse Ray, and it does then hit itself in confusion, we still eventually manage to land a 3rd wing attack, sending Magmar to its fiery grave, with Charizard coming out on top, just like in the show. Although, our victory is short-lived, as Blaine's Arcanine hits the field next, and this thing is a monster. It only takes a single Outrage from Blaine's ace to finish off our Charizard. So, the fight was back to an even 3-on-3. However, we still have a powerful water type ready to unleash Squirtle. After Squirtle barely tanks an Outrage, it charges up a big, super effective Bubble Beam and... Okay, look, I was severely misled into thinking that the Squirtle squad could actually handle putting out some fires. Now we were on the back foot in a 2v3, but this is where our real savior hits the field, Kingler. Because after Arcanine hits itself in confusion, a single super effective Crab Hammer finishes off the fiery dog. But Kingler wasn't done yet. Our Crab was ready for war, because after comfortably tanking a Flare Blitz from Rapidash, the Crab Hammer continues pounding away, with Rapidash falling in a single shot. This all leaves Blaine with only his Ninetales, who ultimately suffers the exact same fate as the rest of Blaine's farm animals, with our almighty Crab Hammer drowning out Ninetales in just one hit. That gives Ash the win, as well as a clutch 7th badge. With Blaine and his Walter White cosplay taken care of, that clears us to chase down the final badge in Viridian City. But on our way there, we take a quick detour into Oak's lab, where the real Gary gives us a Megastone, which sounds incredible until you realize that despite having so many great potential Mega options, Ash only Mega evolved his Lucario, a Pokemon that hasn't been invented in Kanto yet. So yeah, this Megastone is absolutely useless here. But turning our attention back towards the final gym, this is a fight that I've been dreading for a while now, because not only did Giovanni decimate us earlier in the challenge, but his final team specializes in ground and rock types, meaning that our main carries, Charizard and Pikachu, are entirely worthless here. However, in reality, this actually ended up being one of our simplest fights. Pidgeotto walls Giovanni's Dugtrio pretty well, so 2 wing attacks quickly pick up our first KO, and against the incoming Rhydon, we can immediately switch into our crabby overlord, Kingler, who then proceeds to take matters into its own claws, as Crab Hammers just utterly decimate the rest of Giovanni's ground types in a brutal beatdown, giving us a clean sweep, along with our revenge over the Rocket Boss, as well as an easy 8th badge. Well, I've learned my lesson. Now it's time for me to start a new chapter in my life, calmly walk away from all of this, and... Now we have all 8 badges, but Ash's toughest opponents still remain, because our final objective is to take on the Kanto Pokemon League, where Ash had his worst league result of the entire anime. So, to complete Ash's revenge on Kanto, we still need to claim the title of League Champion, using only Ash's Pokemon and moves. With that goal in our sights, we headed west of Viridian City, but before long, our rival Gary rolls up with his cheer squad and brags about also having all 8 badges. So, we're forced into a battle, and hey, wait a minute, Gary has a Jolteon now? Why does he get to use a Thunderstone while I'm still stuck with this thing? Stupid Pikachu. Regardless, after quickly dealing with our rival, we gradually began moving towards our final goal through each of the badge gates before traversing our way through Victory Road. And eventually, we had made it to our final stop of the journey, Indigo Plateau. We would have to take on 5 of the strongest trainers back to back, so I needed to assemble the best team possible. But you might have noticed that we haven't caught some of Ash's strongest Kanto Pokemon yet. Well, in the case of Primeape and Dragonite, there's no way for us to obtain them in their final forms at this point in the game. And since Ash never officially owned any of their prior evolutions, these guys are sadly off the table. In the case of Gengar, it can only be obtained through trading, and since Ash never officially owned a Haunter either, we won't have access to the Ghost type. But despite losing out on those potential encounters, there is one more Pokemon of Ash's that we can obtain: Lapras. The glorified water taxi is just straight up given to us by a Silph Co employee, and while Ash's Lapras has a heartbreaking backstory behind it, Lapras growing up and learning to trust Ash is one of the coolest moments in all of Pokemon. While Ash's Lapras may only have 2 moves, it's still a really solid Pokemon. So, with Lapras now secured, after taking some time to train and upgrade our movesets, Ash was finally ready to take on the Kanto Elite Four, with a squad consisting of Charizard, Snorlax, Pidgeot, Kingler, Lapras, and of course, our ace, Pikachu. We stepped forward, ready for vengeance 30 years later. First up is Lorelei, and I have so many questions. Like, why are you sitting on a Lapras? And more importantly, why is your Lapras giving me a bombastic side-eye? Anyway, Lorelei's team relies heavily on water types, meaning that Pikachu gets to put in work here. Although a Thunderbolt from our ace still isn't enough to take down Dugong in a single shot. So So Pikachu is forced to tank a Waterfall before one more Thunderbolt finishes Lorelei's lead, putting Ash in front. Next up is Jinx, and since this is the only non-water type on Lorelei's team, I desperately want to keep Pikachu alive, so switch out into our big, beefy Snorlax. Although, this big oaf instantly gets smooched by Lucky Kiss, putting it to sleep. Great. This gives Jinx free reign to wail on our Snorlax for the next few turns, as blizzards gradually chip away at our health. But once Snorlax finally decides to wake up and actually contribute, 2 body slams are all we need to flatten Jinx into a pancake. With Jinx taken care of, all of Lorelei's remaining Pokemon are water types, meaning that once Pikachu hits the field, we can take over, as it only takes 1 Thunderbolt to fry Cloyster. Thankfully, Pikachu can also just barely tank a Blizzard from the Lapras that follows, clearing us to take down that side-eyeing Water Taxi with a second Thunder. And while the final Slowbro does finish off our weakened Ace Pikachu, Pidgeot can pick up the pieces, as one final wing attack is all we need to KO Slowbro, securing Ash's first win of the Elite Four. With Lorelei taken care of, next in line to challenge the oldest 10-year-old on the planet is Bruno. His team has definitely been upgraded in this game, as now he's also packing a Poliwrath in the back. But despite that, the big man still leads with an Onix in this game, and since we can't rely on attacking the water sprinklers to take it out, instead we open with Kingler, who instantly slays the Rock Snake with a big quad-effective Crab Hammer. Kingler had claimed its first victim, but we weren't done yet. Since our Crab is so physically bulky, we comfortably survive Hitmonchan's Thunder Punch, allowing us to land a Crab Hammer, followed by a Stomp, quickly finishing Bruno's Master Fister. Things were not looking good for Bruno, and it was about to get even worse, as this is where Ash Ketchum's plot armor really starts to kick in. Because after Bruno sends in his Poliwrath, we switch into Pikachu, who gets hit by a huge superpower, just barely hanging on. After which, Pikachu hits Poliwrath with a big super effective Thunder, and just can't finish the kill. This allows Poliwrath to hit us with one more attack, which should KO Pikachu, but our Ace Mouse holds on out of sheer love. So, as a result, Poliwrath falls to a Thunderbolt on the next turn. But the friendship cheese doesn't stop there, because Pikachu also somehow manages to dodge Machamp's Earthquake, as well as take another hit on the following turn. This feels so dirty, but I guess the Ash Ketchum plot armor really is OP. Anyway, as a result of Ash's game-breaking tactics, Bruno's Machamp goes down, before his final Hitmonlee also suffers the same fate at the claws of Kingler, whose Crab Hammer cleans up yet another KO. That's Bruno taken care of, and those first 2 fights of the Elite Four weren't too bad in the end. But this is where things start to get menacing, as not only do Agatha and Lance have much stronger Pokemon, we also don't have much of a type advantage in these upcoming fights. So, it was time for Ash to get serious. Okay, I don't know if it's just me, but in this game, I swear Agatha just looks like Professor Oak in a wig. Does anybody else see this resemblance? Regardless, the fight starts with a lot of back and forth. Okatha's Arbok quickly falls to 2 flamethrowers from Charizard, before her Weezing gets an immediate revenge KO with Thunderbolt. This trading then continues, as Pikachu overpowers Weezing with some Thunderbolts of its own, before Agatha evens the score again, with Gengar dropping some big sludge bombs onto Pikachu to take down our ace. And while Kingler does finish off the first Gengar, this is where things get scary, as now the second Gengar hits the field and it wants blood. Instantly, our Crab King is slayed by a Sludge Bomb, and while Pidgeot does manage to land a wing attack, the damage is pretty pathetic, before our bird is also shot out of the sky by a Sludge Bomb. Ash's team was starting to fall apart, as the fight had come right down to the wire in a 2v2. However, we still have the beef. Not only is Snorlax bulky enough to eat sludge bombs like a god, but he's also strong enough to overpower Gengar with ice punches, as 2 of these finally bust that menacing ghost. This all leaves Agatha with only her Golbat, who quickly becomes another victim of the beef, as 2 more ice punches rip through her final Pokemon, securing our win. With that, Ash had crushed the first 3 members of the Kanto Elite Four, which brings us to Lance, a man who calls himself a Dragon-type trainer, despite having a team of flying types just because he thinks it makes him sound cooler. Welcome, Challenger. My name is Lance, Master of Dragons, and the entire world already knows who you are. We all saw you get slapped in the Masters 8 tournament. You lost to Diantha. Nobody loses to her. Ever been punched in the face by a Dragonite, twerp? Ow. Lance leads with his Seadra, so naturally, we have Pikachu out in front, as it only takes a single super effective Thunderbolt to wipe Seadra off the map. Next, Lance follows up with his Aerodactyl that knows Earthquake, so we need Pikachu to evacuate immediately. After switching into Pidgeot, effectively sacrificing it in the process, we can safely bring in the King. And thanks to its physical bulk, Kingler eats the incoming Hyper Beam before Crabhammer sends that fossil back to the extinction pit that it crawled out of. We had pulled ahead, but this is where Pikachu takes over, as Thunderbolt fries Gyarados in a single shot, before we also give Lance's Charizard the Leon treatment, shooting it out of the sky with 1,000,000 volts of electricity. And while Pikachu can't finish the job against Lance's Ace Dragonite, this is where Lapras finally gets to make a big debut, as it only takes one last Ice Beam to absolutely annihilate Dragonite, giving us a pretty comfortable win in the end. So, Lance was added to the dumpster, along with the rest of his Elite Four, meaning that only one more battle stood between Ash and his goal of revenge over the Kanto Pokemon League that crushed him nearly 30 years ago. However, this is by far the hardest fight of the entire challenge. Rival Gary is packing a full team of 6 powerful, diverse Pokemon, including a Mega Evolution. But could Ash's humble team of Kanto Pokemon somehow overcome this final hurdle? Well, let's find out. Gary leads with his Pidgeot, who we know is going to Mega Evolve. So, to counter, I lead with Lapras, who should have an amazing matchup here, except Gary uses his plot armor, flinch haxing us several times with Air Slash. As a result, Lapras is only able to hit one Ice Beam onto Pidgeot, which isn't enough to take it out, before Lapras ultimately falls to Air Slash. We had already fallen behind. However, thankfully, we have our ace Pikachu, who quickly evens the score, with Thunderbolt finishing off the weakened Pidgeot. Gary responds with his Vileplume next, so I immediately switch Pikachu out, bringing in Charizard, who has a much better matchup against the Grass type. After a Flamethrower brings the glorified Mushroom to low health, Gary decides to actually keep Vileplume alive, instead opting to switch into Slowbro. And this ends up being awful for me, as while I can chip away at Slowbro a bit with Dragon Rage, ultimately, our powerhouse Charizard is drowned out by a second Surf. Once again, we were behind, but once again, it's Pikachu who evens the score, as the weakened Slowbro can thankfully be finished off by one last Thunder. But just like last time, Gary counters our Pikachu with Vileplume, and to make matters worse, as I switch out into Pidgeot, this time he uses a full restore to undo all of Charizard's Flamethrower damage. Despite that, our wing attacks still do pretty solid damage, at least until Gary uses Reflect, halving our physical damage output. As a result, wing attacks are now barely doing anything, meaning that Vileplume can somehow outpace Pidgeot, crushing our bird with a series of Sludge Bombs. But Pidgeot still put in work, because despite having the type disadvantage, Pikachu is still able to finish off the weakened Vileplume with a quick Thunderbolt on the next turn. Now the fight is back to an even 3-on-3, and this was going right down to the wire. Gary sends in Rapidash next, and I try to stay in with Pikachu, but we miss our Thunder. This allows Gary to respond with a big Flare Blitz, dealing enormous damage to Pikachu. And while we thankfully do land our Thunder on the next turn, it's still not enough to finish Rapidash, causing Pikachu to crumble at the hands of another Flare Blitz. So we have lost our ace, but we still have our Crab. However, before we can finish off Rapidash, Gary decides to switch his Jolteon in, forcing it to eat a big Crabhammer as soon as it hits the field. But since I desperately need to keep Kingler alive, we have to switch it out on the next turn, instead bringing in Ash's beefy Snorlax. Our big Oath can tank Thunders pretty well, before a Body Slam is all we need to finish off the electrified dog. Although, Gary responds by bringing in his final unrevealed Pokemon, Marowak. And unfortunately, this thing knows Brick Break, a super effective fighting type move that cripples Snorlax within a few turns. All of a sudden, the fight had descended into a 1v2. And normally this would be cause for panic, as Ash was surely going to fail in the season finale again. Except, this time, we have Kingler, baby, and our MVP Crab goes absolutely huge here. Not only does Kingler outspeed Marowak, sending it to join its mother at the hands of a Crabhammer, but Gary's final Pokemon is Rapidash, and even though he tries healing, Kingler just doesn't even care, as one final super effective Crabhammer is all we need to KO Gary's final Pokemon. With that, Ash Ketchum had finally conquered the Kanto region, redeeming his worst ever league performance, and we had beaten all of Pokemon Let's Go playing as Ash Ketchum. Jump into this video next for more Pokemon content, and let me know in the comments which of Ash's Kanto Pokemon is your favorite. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.